It appears that I have bought an abandoned Porsche, and I don't know how today is going to go. This could be a complete disaster. Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello, and welcome back to the channel where many of you have noticed I don't, well, prior to today, own a Porsche full stop. Well, it's time to change that, and today we're going to go and pick up something a bit surprising that's very different for me. A lot older than anything I've ever owned, a lot worse condition than anything I've ever owned, a lot more work that's needed than anything I've ever owned, and even today, to get it back here might be a bit of a challenge. While I might not own a Porsche, we're in England after all, no, I am going to say Porsche, don't worry, I do have a rather lovely Porsche sign. This was actually a present from my girlfriend last year, but I have owned a couple of cars from Zuffenhausen, the likes of a 981 GT4 back in 2015, then in 2017 I had a 991.2 GT3 that was awesome in Gelbgrün, then in 2020 I had a Taycan Turbo S, probably more to say about Taycans a little bit later on, and then most recently a 718 GT4 as well. Now, half of those were Caymans, which might in some way link us to what today is about. One thing you might notice though is that I don't really have much by way of classics. I tend to buy brand new cars that I can spec, take delivery of, I know the full history, but we've done a few things that have been different. The SLS Black Series, the full project to repaint and do everything with that. Over towards this end, the Clio V6, which is, well, about 20 years old now. That thing was an absolute state when the project with it began. Also over on this side, you could say the F1 show car. That's technically from the 90s. But for today's edition, we're going back a few decades further even than that. We're heading properly old school with a car that, like I said, is going to be, I'm going to be as British as I can with this, interesting. I did almost forget that I used to have a classic Mini, although that wasn't many years older than the Clio V6. Anyway, you might have spotted over here, we have my dad's Jaguar F-Pace. There is a reason this is here, which will become apparent later, because we kind of need it today. However, first up, our first errand actually involves the pink MSRT Transit Custom, because we need to go over to Whoops. The reason we need to go over to Whoops, who of course do a lot of work with refurbishment, with painting wheels, with tyres, is because the AMG GT Black Series is soon to go on a bit of an adventure, and to take it on an adventure, given it is winter time, and basically it's going to become the Shmeemobile Snow Tour. Where's Shmee Snow Tour? Something like that. It's a big journey to many different countries. I have a set of winter tyres, and the funny thing with these is I've actually had them for a fair while, because I got these back when the car was brand new, with some intentions of taking it to the mountains 2 years ago, except I ended up taking it to Dubai and then to the US, and basically it never found snow really until we were in Utah for a little bit. So we've got a set of GT Black Series wheels down here, because I have a second set of them. Currently we're Cup 2Rs, we're going to get rid of those, put the winter tyres on it. That means we need to go and load these into the van, get over to Whoops, get that done before we come back here, and then we've got another errand to run involving the F-Pace, and then we're going to go and pick up this car, and it's all going to make sense and go full circle and come together very shortly. For what's coming up next, most people would wear black gloves or something like that, but Shmeemobile, we do it with light blue. Now, the logical, I know, would be to bring the van over here, except the van's just been outside, it's pouring with rain, and I don't want to make a complete mess of the garage right now. We'll save that till later. So we're going to go and get these, try and figure out getting them all in the van, take them over. I mean, that's literally why we have an MSRT Transit here, for stuff like this. In fact, I could actually bring the entire trolley over there. That would be smart thinking. Good start to the day. I hope it continues that way. Figure this out. Don't want to crash. There we go. Magic. If this is the way this video is going, we're going to have a problem. I don't know how today is going to be. All of a sudden, I am immensely pleased that we kept this, because at one point we were considering getting rid of it. But no, it is really helpful having something as practical as this. Open those, come grab some wheels. These are enormous rear wheels from the GT Black. And yeah, ready to go get some new tyres on them. That feels a bit flat, very flat in fact. Not a problem though, there's not a whole lot of tread left on there. I'd love to smoke them up, but not really the right weather for that. So we will take these over. Right, fully loaded. Took off some of the packaging. Those are good to go in a second. This, we have slightly changed the weight balance. There's still a lot up top with the other Ferrari Winters. These are actually exactly the same, whether they're for the SF90 or the 296. They have identical tyre sizes, which is odd given one's four-wheel drive and one's rear-wheel drive. But it means, technically, we could take the 296 to go find some snow as well after I took the SF90 last year. And we'll tidy some of the stuff back here onto this and then hit the road. Got a bit of an elephant race going on there. Oddly, the weather has nicely cleaned up. If it stays like this later on for what we've got in store, that is going to be a very welcome relief. But we are, of course, out in the transit. We've actually been to drop off earlier, prior to picking up the camera today, all of the parcels and things from the Shmeemobile 50 eBay shop. But short little ride from where we are now, 10 minutes or so, and we will get to Whoops, get everything unloaded and get those swapped over. And here we are. Whoops will fix it. Boys are ready, and we will get these wheels in. The kind of cool thing is this is a tyre from Yas Marina. These went out to Dubai and they've still got rubber everywhere. What I'm not quite sure about is why there are some markings inside, but hopefully that's going to turn out to be absolutely nothing. If it is, I will let you know shortly. But anyway, these are being swapped over to the winter tyres here. Obviously winter tyres have different compound, different tread patterns, and thankfully these are MO stamped, the proper ones for the car. They are Pirelli Soto Zeros, so that is exactly what I need for where I'm going to be going with this thing. Looking forward to it. It's going to be some good fun with those. This one that was flat, that's why. That is bubbling. There is crazy, because you can't actually see anything in it, but there is 100%, oh, I can feel it actually, 100% a hole in the tyre right there. Good thing they're not going back on a car. Tyre swap now complete, and what's kind of interesting is how much more stretched these look. Obviously, narrower contact patch means more grip when you're out in bad conditions. That is why it's like this. There's a sticker on here from new that we should probably take off. But these are going to be at least legal for some of the countries that we're headed to. They're still at the performance end of winter tyres, but those would not work at all. As you can see, everything locked and loaded. Let's get back to the Shmuseum. There is some swapping around going here. LT is up, 296 is going underneath. Then we're going to pull Brad's Abarth in, get ready to take the Jag out, because we need some space for what's happening later. A little bit of a clue. Jag, space, something going on. This silently moving forwards, and then under there, and progress before we unload the wheels and tyres and get ready to set off. This then is my dad's Jaguar F-Pace D300 all-wheel drive. So diesel, four-wheel drive, SUV, which is here for a specific purpose. Although quite funny because the paint colour is very Shmuseum blue. Although, I'm just going to say, he'll probably see this. This needs some paint correction. This needs a visit to Topaz. That's very swirly. So it needs to get sorted out. We have unloaded everything. It's a bit messy at the moment, but those wheels obviously need to end up on that car. So that's something to get cracking on with at some point. But for the time being, this is here for a reason. We've got a bunch of stuff out over there in the workshop corner that we're going to need to take with us, because the car that we are about to go and collect doesn't drive. It is not a runner. It needs some work. This is very unusual if you know the cars that I've owned to date. So why is this here? Well, this is here because there is something we need that I don't currently have, and I should have had by this point. And well, I can't change the way things have gone, but they have. Anyway, back here, I have a button right here, which if I press, gives us a tow hook. We need a tow bar, and then we need to go and get a trailer. And I actually quite like the concept of having an electronic tail bar like that. That makes it super easy. And thankfully, this car has a tow limit of 2,400 kilos, which is more than enough for what we need today. And we've got the electronics down here. So we are about to take this to go pick up a trailer from GT Towing, where we have rented trailers before for projects like the Clio V6 and certainly other little things here and there, to go take this to collect the new Shmeemobile edition. And I would love to have a car that I could use myself for this purpose. But yeah, that hasn't gone entirely to plan. Anyway, my dad has kindly lent me the Jag, so we're going to hop on board this once we've loaded everything up, go hit the road and go get a trailer. We are about to arrive at the first port of call for today then, here at GT Towing. We have been by many times, and they have this nice area out front where you can drive straight in, and they literally pull the trailer around to you, so it makes it very, very easy. So we will do exactly this. I've got a whole line of cars behind me. Get this in, and then figure out where the trailer is coming from, and get it all plugged in. We have a trailer coming. We've gone with an open trailer. It's always a big thanks to these guys for their help setting everything up. And of course, figured out exactly what we would need for a pretty lightweight, easygoing car. Throw a plate in the back. The Jag actually has a really cool feature, which I haven't seen before. I guess I haven't towed with that many cars. But in the back of this, there is also, if I can find the button, as well as the button here, we've got lots of stuff for the tow bar. The button below is to test your lights. So you can press that, and then it runs a complete test without having to jump in and press the pedals and stalks and things. But this is a little bit of storage. Thankfully, we've got a winch, albeit a manual winch. Brad's got the plate, and we'll get this hooked up, and hopefully this is all going to work out fine. It's time to test this. Give it a go. Let's see what happens. That's quite good. That works nicely. It blinks through a little bit of a cycle. I need to stand out of the way. It's testing reverse lights, brake lights. Nice. They're all off now, but it looked like it worked. I think it's got the full process. Yeah, everything's on. Clever. Impressive. One of the interesting things in here is that the car calibrates to the trailer. You tell it the dimensions of the trailer, and then we've got this complete overview and vision. I like this. The camera angles are very clever. This is a 3-year-old car, but this is some really snazzy tech to keep tabs on the trailer behind us. So, back towing a trailer again. It's been a short while. Always got to give a lot of space, a lot of patience, and take it very slowly and carefully, because you never know what might happen around you, and obviously you've got to be conscious of longer stopping times and that type of thing. And the road is really busy, and we need to go that way, but I'm going to go that way and turn around and come back because it'll be easier. Bear with. Hopefully we can go at some point. All right, here we go. Get out on the road, give a big swing around that sign. We are good. Right, away we go. Back armed with a trailer. The car that we are going to get, I have actually purchased from a private person. Another barn on a farm is basically where we're going. But it's quite interesting driving this because it's actually clever enough to work out the speed limit. So we're on a dual carriageway. If you're in a car, it would be 70, but it recalibrates and knows that it's 60. Anyway, I haven't actually said much yet. It is a car that is over 50 years old. It is a car that, in fact, back in 1970, when Porsche won their first ever Le Mans with 1, 2, and 3 on the podium, it wasn't one of those, but it was also, or the racing version of it, was a class winner. And in fact, in 1973, it was actually the first ever Formula One safety car at the Canadian GP that year. So if you know your stuff, you've possibly just worked out exactly what it is. If you don't, you're going to find out shortly. But it's a car which, well, literally the next update is going to be a bit of an investigation, because it is going to need so much bodywork, paint, interior, engine, every accessory you can think of. This is going to make some sense shortly. So hopefully we're not going to be in traffic here for too long, because it's not particularly exciting. Although I tell you what, I do like that the cameras here on the screen just stay up. If you're maneuvering around town or something and you don't know where exactly the trailer is, you've got a pretty good view using the car's built-in 360 cameras. So massive props to the system that we have in there for this, because it actually works really well. So yeah, let's get there. It is the end of the day, so the light is going to go down quickly. I do also need to actually pay for the thing. We have been to see it, had a quick look. Don't know what I'm getting into, but we're just going to give it a go. So we'll get all of that done, and then, yeah, show you through it, try and get it loaded up, and try and take it back home. After successfully driving over then, this mystery project awaits, and you might have worked it out. Of course, we are ready with the winch and everything to load it up. But let's go and take a look then at this. The Porsche 914. It's a 1973 2-litre 914. This thing looks very nice, but there's a lot we need to talk about. This back in the 70s was Porsche's like entry mid-engine sports car, a collaboration actually between Volkswagen and Porsche in different regions. It was sold under different names depending what exactly it was. This car has come over from the United States. It's lived until a couple of years ago over in the US. There are, however, a lot of things that we're going to need to do, namely, for example, the jigsaw of pieces that we have. It was taken apart, clearly, with some things that have been done and a lot more that needs to be done. The front is exactly the same, filled with all sorts of various parts, but obviously we're going to try and get this back to base and then show you a little bit more. If I pop this open very quickly, where is the latch? This is going to be a lot of learning as we go with this to try and figure. I think maybe it's down. We'll have to wait until we get back for that. Yeah, interesting project begins here, and the first part of this is to figure out how to get this onto the trailer. So let's get rolling and give that a go. Straight on with it then. Brad is kindly cracking on with this.
I've learned from the best. Tony, Tyre Transport's taught me everything I know.
Yeah.
So
and you actually even thought to pick these up because we've got to work out how to winch it forwards.
There's no towing eyes we can tell, so we've got these attaches to the control arms and you pull it up and hopefully it works.
Perfect. Super easy. Also, by the way, in terms of opening this, I now know what to do. What you got to do is press it down a touch. I still don't know what to do. That's half the fun. Wait a second. There we go.
There you go.
Got it. The jigsaw continues. More pieces. Lots of them are labelled, which is great. I don't know what everything is. I'm not even going to pretend I do. That is the fuel tank that sits right in front of you. We do know, because we've tested it, that the secondary latch works. So I can pick it down. Nope. We have done already once.
A bit harder.
Harder than that?
A bit harder.
Magic touch. The other thing, of course, is that the engine is back here. This is the 2 litre, which came out for 73. You need to carefully hold so it doesn't ping up too aggressively. Obviously, a lot that needs to be done in there. We'll find the experts for that to make sure we do it right, and for learning everything else with it. Backwards, forwards.
That's it. Will it stay there? That's good.
I think so, just. I mean, imagine, obviously we don't want something like that to fly open when we're driving. Can you imagine? This is definitely inspired by the likes of Tavares, Matt Armstrong, Chris Slicks, and all the guys who have far more knowledge than we do, who have taught themselves. I say than we do than I do. Brad's got some decent knowledge.
A little bit.
A little bit of knowledge. More knowledge than I have. But yeah, go and have a look at these actually. The seats have actually been retrimmed. Look amazing. But I'm going to say at this stage, expect colour schemes perhaps to vary. That's something we're going to figure out. This car has the 5-speed manual, which is the one to have. They introduced this kind of early automated manual back with this thing. And you have to remember, the early 70s was a big period for Porsche, winning Le Mans, the 2.7 RS, tons of amazing cars that they had in the lineup. And the 914 rolled along, and it was one of those projects that VW-Porsche worked on together.
Hopefully this works as we're expecting.
Yeah.
Well, I've connected these bits on, so now it's winch onto our winch brothers, and then fingers crossed it starts going on when we start winding it. That's the plan anyway.
This is such a first time trying things.
It makes sense, right?
It definitely makes sense.
It's on the lower control arm.
There's nothing to damage.
No.
The other thing is, normally the car would have black plastic bumpers. Obviously they're not on. We have chrome bumpers, but they're going to need some work, and I'll show you those. I'm doing the hard part. No, I'm pretending I'm doing the hard part. It's not easy. This panel is the roof. This is actually something which at the time was, I guess, fairly novel, because that tucks away. You can stow it in here. It does fit when there's obviously not all of the other stuff in there. But we're not putting it in place right now because the latch is, let's just say, not 100%. So rather than risk it going flying off, there's a bracket or something missing, I think, on the, yeah, I can see it's not holding properly. Rather than risking anything going flying off, we're going to keep that to the side for the moment. Maybe even in the back of the Jag, something like that. We'll figure it out. Maybe I'm just going to put it carefully here for the moment while we figure out bumpers and other things, because, as you can see here, we've got some chrome bumpers. These probably need re-chroming, but they will look very nice on it when they're done. Back on the car, which look much smarter than the American plastic ones that they had to have for crash test homologation and all of that back at the time. So those could go in there, could go in the Jag. We've got some blankets. In here, if we fold the rear seat down, not entirely sure how you do that, just the middle one, like that. We can use a blanket, there's some jackets and stuff inside, we've got some blankets here. And then potentially, given that these have no value, protect the seats, obviously. Oh gosh, that's already filthy. We can then put the taller bits straight through the back, wrapped up. Bumpers coming through. That's not too bad. When we've wrapped these up, they will be fine. We'll get another blanket around them as well. Now's when my dad's watching. He's like, "You put what in my car?" Sorry, Dad. It's okay, I promise, it will be totally fine. So this is not too far from being all strapped down. The guy's just working on the roof. And then at some point, we need to hold the boot down. Although driving forwards, it should hold down, but we should still try and strap it. We can head back to the Shmuseum and I can explain a little bit more about why. What's this doing, Brad?
This is making sure we don't lose the roof.
It's definitely not moving. It's really dark now, but that's...
This is that like tough balance there with wanting to strap it down really tight, but obviously it's a roof.
If you go too tight, you'll break it.
So it's tight enough where it's not going to move. This is just to stop it from sliding back and forth.
Yeah.
And then we're going to tighten those down and put these away, and then I think we're going to be good to go.
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan. So inside, because we've got some lovely seats, I've put this one upside down. Obviously this is going to flap around a load, but that's okay. Ow, scratching myself. Hopefully they're going to stay in for the drive. We don't really know until we try. We now have a 914 on the trailer behind us. Not that on the camera I can really see it because of how dark it is here. But tow mode, night driving, and let's just hope this goes fine. Into drive. Slow and steady does it. We need to check on it pretty soon, to be honest. It's funny because I can't see anything behind me right now. It is completely black and blind, but we'll head from here back to base and then take a better look at this thing. The good news is that everything is going fine, apart from one bit of bad news, which is that it has just started lightly drizzling. You probably can't really see that, but you'll have to believe me, there is a little bit of rainfall and there's no roof on the car on the trailer behind me. So the disadvantage of that is that if we came to a standstill, it would start getting a bit wet. If you're driving, in theory, the calculations are correct, it should not get wet inside. So basically, we cannot stop, we cannot get caught in a traffic jam, we just need to get back to base at this speed, low 50s. You can drive 60 miles an hour on the motorway, but we're taking it very easy because of the stuff you can hear tinkling away in the background and because of everything on the trailer that we want to get safely back to base. We're in! That's cool.
That's some good reversing from Tim. That is some good reversing. Just supervising, but we trust him.
That was quite smooth. Couldn't have done it without you, Brad. That was very smooth. So, I think this is literally made to be here. Look at the colour of it. Now that we're back and actually seeing this under the best light that we have seen it, even when I previewed it, it wasn't quite so bright, you might be wondering what I'm holding. Well, it's time to start working on it. I have a Haynes manual. This is actually an older Haynes manual. I've got a newer one as well, which is quite literally an owner's workshop manual for this car. And well, Brad's just been taking more of a look through it than I have. But yeah, we could get started with this. We could go and build some stuff. I'm probably going to leave that to some experts, but it will be interesting to see what we can pick up and learn and figure out and discover. Now, a few other things about this particular car. Firstly, it was originally a Canadian car. So this has come from Canada as opposed to the United States. Well, it was in the United States. It's come to England from the United States, but it originally started its life in Canada. So like the US cars, obviously still with the bumpers and things, this particular color, which is very much, let's say, a heritage Shmee blue. It's really similar to cerulean blue and the colors that I've used on the channel over the years, is actually Alaska blue metallic, which was one of many color options. If you look back at the original order forms for these at the time, in the different years, there were 20 plus colors available in each year, which is quite interesting. Like I say, we might be doing something with paint, so we will touch on that one as we progress. There are a lot of things that don't work. For example, there are missing seals, the passenger door doesn't open, which is why it's open ajar at the moment. The engine fuel lines are hanging out down the other side, and obviously we've got all of this strapped down with the roof panel sitting back here, nice and secure, probably for where we're taking it next, but there's going to be a lot more to it. I also have a certificate of authenticity from Porsche North America, which is kind of cool, which has obviously the chassis number, which back then is a little bit different to anything modern, has the engine number, has the original spec, like the paint color and the black leatherette on the inside, and a few other things, and obviously documentation about the import. It only came over to the UK and was registered here quite recently, this particular car. Trying to think of other interesting things about it. I don't know too much of the history. I don't exactly have service records or anything like that, and I don't know what parts I have or don't have, but that is half the fun for a project like this, to build it, I guess in a way similarly to what we did with the Clio, basically OEM, if we can, but with some things on top of that. Trims, details, maybe a little bit raspier from the engine, this being the 2-litre, and it's quite complicated because back in the early 70s, the original 1.7 that they launched it with was not exactly the fastest thing in the world. That, a few years later, with the introduction of the 2-litre, also was the introduction of the 1.8, which replaced the 1.7, around 70 horsepower. This is around 100 horsepower. And then the official Porsche model was the 914-6, which cost significantly more money, basically the same as the 911 at the time, but had a lot more power, a lot more go, and was obviously the most collectible variant through to the modern day. But it's quite an interesting thing. We've got pop-up headlights. We've got a whole lot of things about it. A removable Targa roof panel. There's a lot missing. It's going to be a crazy discovery, but it's a really fascinating car because, well, the things I said earlier, first ever Formula One safety car was one of these, a bright yellow one at the Canadian GP. It was that year at Le Mans, 1970. And here as well, for me, this is the first time I've owned a proper classic, a car that is MOT exempt, tax exempt, and all of those things that only happen here in the United Kingdom when it's 40 years old. So this is taxed. Like the other cars that I have to pay a whole lot of money for every year, none of that with this, which is interesting. It will probably need an MOT once it's been rebuilt though, just to make sure it is genuinely safe and we haven't missed anything. Things like lights are a pretty obvious one, but there's a lot of stuff underneath. Brakes, I suppose, aren't seized up because it was moving earlier, but probably need replacing. In fact, a lot of it needs replacing, but you've got to start somewhere. So this was the start for this project. We're not going to be unloading it right now. It's actually going to stay on the trailer because almost immediately we're going to take it ready for the next update to have a proper look, to have a bit of an inspection. And of course, to do that, we're going to be heading up to Yorkshire Car Restoration. The guys up there, Steve and Ryan, are going to be taking a look at this. They have done some work on a few friends' cars, the likes of Auto Alex, who I've spoken to about this car as well, Matt Armstrong, also Colin Furze. I haven't seen Colin for many, many years, but I suspect it's going to be in good hands with them, although no doubt they will find some bodywork repairs, some fillers, some rust, and plenty of things that are going to make me truly grimace and not be very happy. But from there, it will obviously need interior trim, it will need engine work, it will need all sorts of other things refined and finished. It's going to be a big old project. You know what it is? Probably the smallest car here. It's very similar to my original Clio, but perhaps it's a little bit larger than I thought. It's actually slightly larger than 911s at the time, I believe. But think about this. It's a 1973 Porsche 2.7 RS, anybody? That's a very special year, a very special period for Porsche. And there is now a Porsche back in the garage. I know to some people it's a Volkswagen, and in fact, actually even on the chassis plaque in the front, it says Volkswagen AG, which is just under the hood. We'll get to all of that later, which is kind of funny as well. Anyway, we've been successful. I thought today could be a whole lot more trouble than it has been. The winch straps that Brad got, there is actually a tow hook somewhere under there, I believe, but this solution works really well to just hook it up like that and pull it onto the trailer. So if we keep having that kind of success, it will be a good project. It's probably not going to go so smoothly though. So next up, we'll go inspect it, find out how much of a disaster it is, and then from there, the guys will undertake the project, and hopefully at some point down the line, we will start on all of the other details that will make it drivable beyond the frame and restoration work that begins So yes, that has been our outing today, borrowing my dad's Jaguar F-Pace to go pick up a new Shmeemobile, a surprise Shmeemobile, a very unusual car, the Porsche 914-4. That is not something I thought I might say not all that long ago, but sometimes these things just come together and that is the way you go. So I hope you are looking forward as much as I am to what we can do with this. But that is it for this time. Thank you very much for your support, guys. I really appreciate it. That's it for now, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.